Hi, I'm Dave with Commercial Coils, and in this video we are going to use our dimensional sheet on a DX coil. So to get started, we're going to get started in the upper right hand corner, and we're going to pick out our tubing material and our tubing diameter. Now on this coil here, what you would want to do is just kind of look at the tubes, and if you got a knife or something you can kind of scratch it a little bit. And on this particular coil the tubes are copper, so we will circle copper. And the next item up is getting the tube diameter. Now we'll take our measuring tape measure and get ourselves a diameter here. And I'm measuring a 1/2 inch diameter tube. Now the other thing that we also use to help with this is our measuring gauge. This gauge is, you can ask for one of these, you can call us up and we'll send you one to you. And it already has the cutouts for you, so you can measure up the tube diameter and be about as accurate as you can be. And so in this particular case, since I think it's 1/2 inch, I'll start there. And sure enough, it slides right into the 1/2 inch mark, and so it matches up real nice. If you use the 5/8, you'll notice it's a little sloppy, and then the 3/8 one won't go on there at all. So tube diameter on this coil is a 1/2 inch, so we're going to circle that. And then right under that we have the thickness of material. Obviously we can't cut into the coil to see what the actual thickness is, so you'll have to kind of tell us of what you would prefer, and then you would circle that, and then we'll make sure that we quote that accordingly. The next item up are the fins. Do we have aluminum or copper? And as we look at this coil here, we'll take a look, and you can see they definitely look to be aluminum. And if we kind of move them a little bit with our finger here, they move fairly easy, so that would also indicate that it's aluminum. And of course if they were copper, they'd have this kind of a color to them, and we could see. And then again, you could use a knife to kind of scrape it a little bit to see if you actually have aluminum or copper. But this coil here has aluminum, so that's what we're going to circle there. Also in that column there, we're going to indicate the tube diameter again, which is 1/2 inch. And then what your thickness needs to be on the fins. Again, you're going to have to use your best judgment, because it's not going to be the easiest thing to see how thick that fin is. And if you just want to indicate what you prefer, then that's what we'll quote you. And then we're going to start with our dimensionals. Starting with the first item here is the quantity of coils. And in this particular case, I just need 1 coil. Also on this sheet, you'll notice that we have 2 coils here. The coil that we're actually dimensioning is what we call a face split DX coil. And what you'll have is you're going to have one header above the other, and they independent circuits. So this is going to be like circuit 1 and circuit 2. And in this face split coil, the circuit 1 is only going to be activating the first half of the coil. Circuit 2 is only going to be activating the bottom half of the coil. Now we do have drawings on our site for both of these. The top coil that you're seeing here is what we call a fully intertwined DX coil. And in this particular coil, you'll notice that these headers are tying into the tubes from top to bottom, along with the second circuit, which is indicating it's also connecting tubes from top to bottom, which then would make the whole area of this coil's surface area totally active. Again, both drawings are on our site, and you can choose either one to get yourself the dimensions that we'll need. The next item up on our sheet are the tubes high. So what we're going to do is we're going to count how many tubes that this coil has running from top to bottom. So in this particular case here, we're going to start here, and we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So this coil has 22 tubes from top to bottom. So we're at 22 in the tubes high. The next thing to determine is the coil hand. Again, when you're looking at our drawing, you'll see that these have a right hand and a left hand layout. So what we're going to do is we're going to match up that layout to what we currently have on the coil. This coil has our suction headers on the right side, so we're going to match that up in here. And per our drawing, this coil is a left hand layout. So we will indicate in that area there, LH. Or you can circle it on the drawing. Next item up to determine are the number of rows. On this particular coil, we're always counting rows, as this is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this again is a 6-row coil. So again, we count from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6-row coil. Next item we're going to count is the fins per inch. Take our tape measure, going to lay it out, and we're just going to count the number of fins that we get within 1 inch of on the coil. So we'll count that here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. So this coil has 14 fins per inch. Next item up is our A dimension. The A dimension is our fin height. So on this particular coil, we're going to want the dimension from here to the very top of the fin, here, all the way down to here. So we'll get that. And on this coil, it is 27.5 inches. That's our A dimension. Next up is our B dimension, and our B dimension is going to be the fin length. And on this coil, we're going to be measuring from right here on our fins to right here on our fins. And on this coil, we have 54.5 inches. So that's going to be our B dimension, 54.5 inches. The next dimension is CT and CB. CT is the casing top, CB is the casing bottom. So we're going to measure each one of those separately. And our CT measures 1 inch, and our CB dimension measures 1 inch. So in CT, 1 inch, in CB, 1 inch. And the next two items are up is D and E. Per our drawing, this is dimension D, and this is dimension E. So we're going to get those measurements. Dimension D is 1.5 inches, and then dimension E is 1.5 inches. So let's get those on there. Again, D, 1.5 inches, E, 1.5 inches. Next up is our F dimension. The F dimension is from the very top of the casing to the very bottom of the casing. So we're going to measure that one. And we have 29.5 inches for our F. So the F dimension, 29.5 inches. Next item up is our G dimension. The G dimension is going to be from the very end of this casing to the very end of this casing. So once again, we're going to get that measurement. Making sure we're nice and straight. And it is 57.5 inches. And again, you can double check your G dimension by taking D plus B plus E. Next item up is our H dimension, and that's going to be how wide our casing is, the total width of our casing. It's going to be our H dimension, and on this coil here, we have 8 3/8. write that in here. So 8 3/8. Next up is our eye dimension. The eye dimension is going to be from the very back of the coil, including your return bends. So from the very edge of your return bends all the way to the header face of your coil, which is this area, this surface area here. Now, a lot of times you cannot get this dimension because it's all the coil's in service. And so what we're going to do at the end is we're going to add these items up so that we can come up with our eye dimension. So we're going to come back to the eye dimension. So the next item that we have up is the J dimension. The J dimension is going to be how far out we want this connection to stick out from the face of the header. And on this coil, we have 6 inches. And this one too is at 6 inches. So our J dimension is 6 inches. Next up is our L dimension. The L dimension is going to be from the face to the very end of this header. So we'll get that measurement. And on this coil here, we have 4 inches. The next item up for us to measure is the S1 dimension. Now, the S1 dimension is measured from the very bottom of the casing to the center of our connection. So we're going to measure that. I always like to use a straight edge if I can. And on this coil here, this one measures 1.25 inches. So S1 is 1.25 inches. Now S2, again, we're going to come from the very bottom of the casing to the center of this connection. And then of course on this coil here, we have 14.25. So the S2 dimension will be 14.25. Now the T dimension is going to bring us to the return end of the coil because we need to get that. So we're going to have to turn the coil around here a little bit. And what we're going to do here is we're going to measure the most farthest point on these return bends. So we're going to measure from the face to the return bend. And on this coil, we have 2 inches. So that is our T dimension. So T is 2 inches. And then next up is our X dimension. We'll put us back at the header end. And then the X dimension is going to be from this casing edge to the center of our header. It's going to be our X dimension. Okay, so on this coil here, usually I like to try and get close to the connection if I can, so I can line it up because that's where we need it to match up to. And on this coil, our X dimension is 1.25 inches. So we're going to write in here, X is 1.25. Now, a Coming back to our eye dimension, the way you can get your eye dimension on this coil, since our return bends are actually sticking out beyond our casing D dimension, we would take the T dimension plus our B dimension plus our L dimension. That will give us our I dimension. And when we add all these up on this particular coil, we get 60.5 inches. Now that's going to complete us on this dimensional sheet. And if you have any other additional questions or thoughts, you can always reach us at our 1-800 number at Commercial Coils.